The highly questionable, this guy over here, he's wearing black because he's in mourning because LeBron is in the finals again. That's my father. That's Izzy Gutierrez. What do you like on the show today?
Oh, I'm waiting for this man to pick against LeBron in the finals to guarantee that it's a great series.
Dale, papi.
Are you totally convinced that the better team won the Western Conference Finals?
I am totally convinced of it, but this series offered me nothing in the way of proof, and last night didn't prove it to me either, because if Houston had merely had an apocalyptically bad shooting night from three, if it had merely been bad, below average and merely bad instead of historic, they win that basketball game. That's the margin of error that Golden State was playing with. They were the better team throughout, but at any time, Houston can make more threes. The fact that they went 0 for 27 is against so many outlying odds that you can't expect on open threes for a team that is good at threes to miss that many consecutively. I cannot tell you, the odds are 72,000 to 1 according to 538. That means you bet $1, you win $72,000 on that.
What they've done essentially is, in their minds, close the gap between themselves and the Warriors. Going into the regular season, you thought, okay, that's a nice team they put together there in Houston, still not Golden State's level. Now they can exit the season saying, you know what, we're just health away from beating the Warriors. We're not another player, we're not another system, nothing else, just health away from beating the Warriors. And it's something they could truly argue. And let's be honest, that's the best possible way this series could have ended for them outside of winning it. Knowing that, hey, we don't need to do much else. Next year, we can even take the rest approach. Just make sure that we're healthy for the conference finals, and we might still beat that team.
The part that's crazy is that Houston managed to take to 7 games the best team that I've ever seen, while in one game, James Harden went over 11 from 3. And yesterday, the one guy with championship pedigree on the entire Houston Rockets roster goes 0 for 12 from the field. If Trevor Ariza just made a few threes, at least you would have gotten at the end of that game to see a desperate Warriors team actually challenge.
This is also, besides being the best way it could have ended for them in a loss, the most predictable way it could have ended for them in a loss. A Mike D'Antoni team dying by the 3, dying badly by the 3, as you mentioned, 27 straight. This is the biggest concern, and this is going into the offseason, and it's going to be a question into next season, is whether James Harden can still be that one guy when you need it.
You know that I don't like questioning athletes as mentally frail, but if you were to look for proof of a team choking, the place that you'd find it is going 0 for 27 from 3 when many of the threes are wide open. While Kevin Durant and Steph Curry were making bombs from a distance, the place that the Warriors put themselves in, we would be talking today about them choking if Houston had just made like 5 of those threes that they would normally make.
And those traits become the most visible in a Game 7.
Do you want to see my Rocket impersonation? Clump, clump, plunker. Clump, clump, plunker. Clump, clump, plunker. Clump, clump, plunker.
Oh, that's an
clump,
everywhere.
clump, plunker. Clump, clump, plunker.
18.
Clump, clump, plunker.
21.
Clump, clump, plunker.
24.
Clump, clump, plunker.
NBA history right there. That's a great impression.
How much blame does the running beard deserve for the Rockets Game 7 loss?
It never says the running beard on there. It's James Harden on there, but he calls him the running beard. And because of all that running, a lot of his shots were short last night. You need an MVP when Chris Paul is out to behave like an MVP. In the second half of the games throughout this series, he was really pedestrian. They needed more from him, so you could put blame on top of him as the best player on this team that was this close to getting to the final.
It's really hard to argue that this is what James Harden's reputation is, because every postseason he has 1 or 2 head scratchers. He's really good in Game 1s. He's not so good the rest of the series. And when you look at this series in particular, as it went along, not so great. As the games went along, he got worse. In his second halves for the series, 14.8% from 3. That's terrible, especially from your MVP, especially when you look on the other side and say, hey, Steph Curry, who had those bad 2 first games, blows up in the second quarter, particularly in the third quarter, and runs away with this series because of that. So it's hard not to pinpoint on James Harden and say, hey, you're the guy to blame. He's doing this year after year after year. There's got to be a reason. Maybe he's just a little bit more easy to defend as series goes along because people aren't reaching as much, aren't sending him to the foul line. Maybe it's in his own head. Not sure, but he's got to break this pattern somehow.
If you were trying to make a meager argument on behalf of James Harden, having no Chris Paul and playing that specific defense where you've got to chase around all all of their players when you're defending, and then you're playing against a Golden State defense that doesn't get nearly enough credit, you can understand why a guy with a little bit of a potbelly by the standards of the NBA physique might fatigue late in games. If I'm James Harden, I'm taking this into the offseason, I'm haunted, and I'm going into a weight room to work a little harder than I have in the past.
How many games is it reasonable to expect the Cavs to win in the finals?
What the hell are they doing in the finals, man? They are terrible at defense. They are a one-man team. As many people have pointed out, usually a team with that defensive ranking doesn't survive a playoff round, never mind get to the finals. So they're the biggest underdog you will ever see in the finals. Think about that for a second. LeBron James, as big an underdog as you will ever see, because you have to bet $1,000 on the Warriors to win $100 on the Warriors. And think about it this way, too. If somehow a few threes had gone down, many of you would give LeBron a chance against the Rockets with Chris Paul hurt, but now he's got no chance.
It's reasonable to expect LeBron and the Cavs to win none of these games. But you're a crazy person if you can't at least picture him winning it all. Because, man, he's LeBron James. We've already seen, look, I understand the East is diluted, I get it, but his performance is still required to do more, and he's had to sort of lug this team with him. If you can imagine him saying, all right, I'm going to go into this series, and look what the Houston Rockets did. They slowed down the game. They switched everything. They didn't have a bunch of individually great defenders. They had a good system, got the game in the 90s. I can take over from that point. I'm more unstoppable. I'm more reliable than James Harden in big moments. If I get any sort of help, and if the Warriors allow us to shoot any sort of decent percentage from three, I feel like I can go in and do that. But the thing that I love the most about LeBron James is just like, we're just sort of watching here to see how this portrait is completed. We expect him to lose this, but we're sort of sitting there saying, well, if he doesn't, and by this point, you're not shocked by anything that he does.
I got 3 words for you. Warriors in 4.
Oh, there it is.
Papi has spoken. That's
Papi
right.
has spoken. It's coming from the makers of Celtics in 4. Now comes Warriors in 4.
Still waiting to pop that bottle of champagne.
Is it a big deal that another former Patriot said that he hated playing in New England?
Cassius Marsh has escaped from the dominator, from the dictatorship of Bill Belichick, and now he is free to speak freely. And when he gets to the 49ers, the defensive end, a guy I hadn't heard of before this, says it wasn't any fun to play there, and he actually thought about not playing anymore because of how little he liked it there. It can get cold up there in more ways than one, and you hear more and more athletes saying that they don't love playing there. They trade that lack of enjoyment for winning. That is the trade you're now making. This is too many voices saying it. Every free agent that ends up there is doing so because you sell your soul for winning. It can't be because it's a fun environment.
Yeah, it can be pretty damning when these players start to speak up, but I wonder if this has been the case for years and years, but they're only sort of empowered now because it seems like Tom Brady is lashing out a little bit, because it seems like Rob Gronkowski is lashing out a little bit. There are some cracks there, and these other players are saying, you know what, I didn't like it there either. Let me go ahead and speak up. It could just be their malcontents, and the guys who come in there with something to prove, with the chip on your shoulder, everything else, maybe they love that environment. Maybe they want to thrive there and get paid, and they see that all as a positive. So I'm not ready to say this is all crumbling right before our eyes, but I do think that the numbers growing are pretty darn telling.
Have you seen how Tom Brady is spending his off-season?
Let's see here. What do we have?
Yes.
There we go.
This is so great.
This is, I mean...
Yes, of course. This is the French Riviera, and of course he's throwing it to a tiny white wide receiver.
Yes, of course. During OTAs, by the way.
Coming up next on my son Stevie Show, Ice Cube.
My homie Kibo set a hard pick on George Clooney one day, and I heard him go, ugh.
Joining us at the beach today, Ice Cube.
One of the best to ever do it in the hip-hop game. He's with us on behalf of the second season of the Big Three. It starts June 22nd. Let's talk to him. He doesn't like Izzy Gutierrez. Wouldn't do the interview if he was here. So, Izzy, get out of here. Were there any rejected names for NWA as a group? Any group names that you were close to being and then it became NWA? Were there any other names for the group?
No other names. Not one other name. I actually didn't know we were going to be a group until they pulled up and was like, yo, we're going to be an all-star group, and here's our name. I'm like, NWA. This is what Easy tells me. I'm like, what that mean? When he told me what it meant, I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
that
so
worked.
you were taken along on that one. That's not something that you chose, because I sort of think of you as the creative spirit behind almost everything those guys were doing.
Well, no, I mean, everybody had their part. You know, I wrote a lot of great songs, but, you know, everybody had their part when it came to the group and the flavor of the group. So Easy had great ideas, you know, imagery. Dre, of course, had great ideas when it came to music and concerts. You know, I was more of a concept guy, write lyrics, think of hooks, think of scratches and things that can go into the songs. You know, everybody had their own flavor. Yella was more of our technical guy who knew how to work all the equipment. And, you know, Ren was basically, you know, a dude who kept us on point, who wouldn't let us, like, you know, when the NWA recorded a song called Panic Zone, Ren was the first one to leave, and I was the second one to leave because we felt those wasn't NWA records, so we left the studio session.
Who had veto power on creative differences? Like, because ultimately somebody's got to make the last decision if you guys don't agree on something.
Dre and Easy, they had the veto power. You know, we had the power of shame, you know, by just saying that's whack, that's garbage, that shouldn't be on our record. And I still give it to them. I still tell them. I shouldn't put Panic Zone on the record, bro.
Like what? What happened?
No.
How do you give it to them? What do you mean? Like in person? You call them up, you remind them?
When I see them, and we talking about the old times. Yeah. Me and Ren still talk about Panic Zone, and it shouldn't have been on the record. It's whack.
What comes closest to the pride you have in your professional development about NWA? Like, what other project have you had, just professionally, where you would say, that gives me the same feelings of pride that NWA does?
Man, a lot of projects, you know, Boys in the Hood, my movie career, Friday, you know, give me a lot of pride. Straight Outta Compton, the movie, gives me a lot of pride. You know, what I've been able to do, even in sports with the Big Three. You know, extreme pride from that. And so, you know, NWA is just the start of me feeling good, so to speak.
On the set of Three Kings, George Clooney fancies himself a basketball player. You famously, you know,
yeah,
triple-double lyrics. Who beat whom when you were playing on the set of Three Kings?
Oh, I whooped George. We whooped George plenty of times. We whooped on George plenty of times. They stopped inviting us to the gym.
Is that right? Because he thinks he's really good.
Yeah.
Like he used to like.
I know what he think. I know what he think. But I'm telling you, we was in Casa Grande, Arizona, playing at the local I think it was a church or something that they had a gym. We had to mop the floor every day because there was so much dust from the desert on the floor. And, you know, whooped up on them a couple times, and then we didn't get invited no more. So I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. What happened? I want to hear just what happened. I want to hear what happened where you were not invited back. And who's the we? Who else? Who were you playing with?
With my crew, with some of my clique. I think my homie Kibo set a hard pick on George Clooney one day. And I heard him go, ugh. And then from then on, we weren't never invited again.
Now, but did you bring ringers, or were you the one handling Clooney yourself? Were you doing it yourself, or were others doing it for you? Because you got to work with the guy.
Man, him, Mark Wahlberg, all of them that wanted to get down. Yeah, I got a list of them. Served them all. Served them well.
Cube, my father wants a shot at you. What do you got, Poppy?
Yes, Ice Cube. What is the most embarrassing moment you have had on a stage?
Uh-oh.
Oh, man, forgetting lyrics. Forgetting lyrics. I mean, you go to that second verse and you just draw a blank. And the beat is rolling, and your crew know what's going on. Fans, you see some people mouthing the lyrics, and they don't see you mouthing the lyrics. And then you're just like, uh-oh. New song, stop the beat. Stop the beat, DJ. Crowd ain't hype enough. Let's go to a new song. That's how you fix it.
That is how you fix it. It helps to be the boss that way. Thank you, sir. We appreciate talking to you.
Oh, man, much love, man. Y'all got to come check us out when we come to Miami, man. Come check us out when we in Miami, for sure.
We will.
He's lying to you, Q, but I'll be there.
All right. No problem.
Take care. Mexican. Highly questionable is broadcast from the Clevelander Hotel on beautiful South Beach, Miami. Time to play the game that is considering growing a dope beer. Do you question?
You give us topics and events, we question them.
Growing a dope beard, not a beer. He's not fermenting beer in his garage.
Beer. Do you question Swaggy P?
Every day. Every single day.
Father will not like you for making that comment. Let's go to the Western Conference Champion Trophy Celebration. What do we have here?
This is Nick Young, 11 years in the league. You're going to turn 33 on Friday, so your early birthday present is a trip to the NBA Finals on Thursday. What does this feel like to do this with this bunch?
I got a hat, as you can see, T-shirt, and yeah. I'm not
holding the trophy.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, what's it mean to get there at this point? Okay,
go have some fun. I don't want to talk to you.
Okay, remember this date in NBA history, the day Nick Young said he didn't want to be interviewed.